Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session on Taming the LLM Wild West, Unified AI Governance and Observability using the Mosaic AI Gateway on Databricks. My name is Archika, and I'm a product manager here at Databricks on our AI platform. So, forward-looking statement, as you've probably seen throughout the week. Be sure to complete your surveys after each session. This is super important for us. And with that, let's get started with our agenda. So first, we're going to set the landscape, literally and metaphorically, of the LLM Wild West. Then we're going to talk about the Mosaic AI Gateway and how it plays a role in governance and observability in taming this rogue landscape of LLMs across different providers and models. And then we'll do a quick demo of what AI Gateway actually looks like and what value it brings to the table when it comes to governance and observability. Plus, it'll be coupled with a special announcement. And then we'll look into what's coming next over the next few months. And end off with some key takeaways. Cool. So as all of you guys already know, and probably why you're here, is it's because we're in the middle of a Gen AI boom. So in 2023, just a year and a half ago really, only 5% of enterprises actually productionized anything on Gen AI. But in 2026, Gartner predicts that more than 80% of enterprises will have deployed some sort of Gen AI application out there. So we're really in the crux of this, given that we're in 2025. So let's meet Joe. Joe works at a company called Finbricks. He's the head of the AI platform for this financial services company. The CEO has challenged him to democratize Gen AI at all costs. And the goal of that is to generate ROI across the org using large language models. There's a few key use cases that they've been scoping out, from automating internal processes to delivering more intelligent customer experiences, and also accelerating insights that are hidden in unstructured data. So this all sounds awesome. What could possibly go wrong for Joe? Well, there's a lot of things. Let's start with day zero of Joe's journey as the head of the AI platform, basically enabling access to these LLMs across his enterprise. He shares his first API key with a team to kick off the first use case, a chatbot POC from OpenAI. However, someone decides to commit that API key in some repository, and a random intern on another team gets a hold of it and decides that they're going to spend the summer burning thousands of dollars of OpenAI credits on some personal project of theirs. Unfortunately, Joe couldn't really do anything about this. Now he has a $20K bill, and the intern is really just hearsay. He doesn't have a way to attribute who actually was responsible for those costs spiraling through the roof. Things are not off to a great start, but he persists. Now we're at day 30. So 3 teams have been onboarded to use LLMs in Joe's organization, and they're sharing the same Azure OpenAI provision throughput instance, for example, because this is most cost-effective for the traffic that these use cases are getting. However, a developer on one team decides that he's going to start load testing, which takes the production use case down because now the PTU instance is kind of off the table and the capacity limits have been hit. What Joe gets is 1 million Slack messages from teams that can't meet their SLAs because the LLMs that are powering those applications are unavailable. And as the central source of access for these, his head is on the line. Okay, Joe is a very resilient guy, as you can tell. So now we're at day 60. He has his first external-facing use case approved at Finbricks for Gen AI, which is a huge thing, especially for a regulated industry. However, on this external chatbot that's on their website, end users start asking for tax advice. And they're getting some pretty weird responses from this LLM chatbot, which clearly doesn't know how they're supposed to answer it or what it's supposed to say. So they start posting screenshots of this on Reddit, being like, oh my god, haha, Finbricks is answering this so weirdly. And so what Joe gets is a screenshot from the legal team asking, how is it possible that our LLMs are out there violating very, very key compliance policies that we need to adhere to? Because ideally, a financial services platform shouldn't be giving tax advice to any end user out there. So by day 90, Joe is sick and tired of basically getting pings, getting things escalated to his leadership, democratizing access at all these different risks. And so he decides he's going to build his own proxy to centralize access and all of these rules that need to govern these LLMs, regardless of who's using it and where they're productionizing it. However, every single month, it seems like some new provider is coming out, some new model is getting released, and it's really hard for him to integrate this into his proxy, and he's starting to become a bottleneck for a lot of his teams to onboard onto using the most cutting-edge LLMs out there. So some teams decide they're sick of Joe, and they're going to start going behind his back, outside of the proxy, going straight to OpenAI, whatever provider's out there, and just using LLMs that way, which is honestly Joe's worst-case scenario. So in 90 days, we saw that democratization honestly turned into more of a nightmare than a blessing. It went from rainbows and unicorns to, oh my God, we're going to apply Gen AI everywhere and generate all this ROI, to honestly this nightmare, fiery scene of Elmo freaking out. You can consider Elmo as Joe in this case. So we've seen a lot of enterprises actually grappling with a lot of these struggles and questions and anxieties, and we've actually seen the rise of Gen AI governance committees across the customers that we've been talking to. Who are these people? They're actually cross-functional stakeholders. So the legal team is involved, the IT team is involved, security, platform team, et cetera. It's a lot of people who come together so that they can decide how they're going to democratize access to Gen AI, but mitigate the risks that they're most scared of, whether it has to do with brand identity, abuse, or costs. And why are they doing this? It's because they want to embrace this, but they don't want to put the enterprise reputation or budget at risk. So what are the key questions that enterprises are actually asking? The first one is, how do we ensure only approved and secure AI models are used? Out of curiosity, is anyone's company here asking that question as well? I'm guessing a lot of you guys are adjacent to that. Okay, I see a good number of hands. The second question is, how do we track and control usage to prevent overspend or capacity abuse? Is that something that people's enterprises are thinking about? Okay, a few hands there. And then lastly is the compliance aspect of this. Now, how do I enforce my company's policies and audit for compliance across all of Gen AI? Maybe we have some regulated industry customers here, other customers with their brand on the line that they really care about. Sounds like we do with a few nods in the room. Awesome. And the key component of this is, how do I do all of this without slowing down innovation? Because you don't want governance to be a headache or a bottleneck in a rapidly evolving landscape. You want it to be an enabler. So that's why we built the Mosaic AI Gateway in Databricks, which gets you AI governance and observability, which lets you get teams to production much faster. What Joe really needed was solutions to all of his problems. And so his problems were loose LLM credentials, spiraling costs, provider reliability, and compliance issues. So what he really needs is secure permissions, cost controls, and attribution, a way to manage his traffic and capacity, and comprehensive auditing and proactive guardrails to deal with compliance issues. Mosaic AI Gateway pretty much gives you all these things in one bag. We provide a unified governance across any model and any provider, whether it's OpenAI, Anthropic, Gemini, hosted on Databricks, hosted off of Databricks. We're completely agnostic to this. We give you centralized cost, compliance, and capacity controls across the different providers in a unified way. And then we also provide a really key component of this, which is observability out of the box, whether it's operational metrics, usage and cost, or quality monitoring that you need to do. So we have a list of a lot of different models, and it seems like none of them really have much in common other than the fact that they're all LLMs. We have Amazon, we have some open source, some closed source. What are the things that are actually tying these LLMs together in AI Gateway today? It's a unified query interface. When you put a model or an LLM in AI Gateway, we will standardize it to a unified query interface where you can pretty much talk to any provider from Claude Sonnet 4 to Llama to GPT in the same exact way. You can do this from our UI built into the platform through the AI Playground, or by calling every provider and model with the OpenAI SDK, where all you have to do is just swap the model name. This enables teams to move a lot faster. Instead of having to figure out how to talk to all of their different providers and models differently, we unify that and standardize it for them when they put their model in the AI Gateway. And we support all of these top providers above. So ultimately, at the end of the day, what is AI Gateway? It's a centralized governance vehicle across all of your different LLM models, whether proprietary or open source, including also your agents that you build on Databricks, and of course, we would never forget about your classic AI endpoints as well. The key capabilities we provide span across cost, capacity, and compliance. You can use our usage tracking table, which is a system table that monitors who's calling every single LLM and how many tokens are going through each request to monitor cost across the board. You can use rate limiting to then make sure that people don't take costs out of the, through the roof by using or calling an LLM way too much or more than they should. And then you can also do capacity management with our traffic routing policies, like fallbacks or load balancing within the endpoint setup. And lastly, you have full observability into an audit trail with inference tables, which capture the payloads going in and out of your LLM in its comprehensiveness. And once you have the compliance monitoring, you can be proactive about it instead of AI guardrails, so that you make sure that your Gen AI never strays away from your enterprise policies or legal obligations. AI Gateway, though, is more than just governance. It's a really powerful tool for platform teams, but it's equally powerful for teams trying to go to production as well. With AI Gateway, you can do two things. First, you can deploy with confidence. You're able to monitor operational health and quality through our inference tables, and then you can validate quality and generate more enhanced insights on the data we're already capturing for you using our agent monitoring and evaluation framework, which allows you to basically generate custom metrics that observe your production traffic over time and tell you how well your application is doing, either from a quality or compliance perspective, which we'll show in a little bit. In addition, once you have all of this production traffic living in Databricks out of the box, regardless of which model it is or where it lives, you can curate these production logs into training and eval data sets so that one day down the line, you can continuously fine-tune smaller and cheaper models with this data to get more cost-effective things in production and improve your ROI as well, rather than having to rely on these really heavyweight large language models that are often proprietary and hundreds of billions of parameters. Some exciting news that I want to share right now, but we'll also go over it during our roadmap, is that inference tables are going to be real-time very soon. Has anyone used inference tables here today? Okay, we have a couple people. So right now today, you might see a delay up to an hour to get that payload to come and write to your inference table. We're working to reduce that to a matter of just 5 seconds. So this is super key to get real-time applications into production, because with that, you need real-time observability, which is why we're prioritizing making sure that your data for quality, compliance, and performance monitoring gets in your hands ASAP. So now let's go back to poor Joe, who's sitting there on day 90. He kind of hates his life. And let's figure out how we can help him democratize access to AI responsibly and securely via AI Gateway through a demo. So the first step we're going to help him with is to set up secure access to LLMs across any model and provider so that he's no longer the governance bottleneck for all of his teams that are trying to innovate fast. Then we're going to enable him to get full-fledged cost observability, alerting, and controls out of the box so that he can do this in a centralized manner and go to bed at night not worried about who's going to take his costs through the roof and whether he's even going to know that it's happening behind his back or not. And lastly, Joe obviously cares a lot about compliance, so let's take a look at how we can create an auditing and enforcement story for compliance, standardized across all of his LLMs that live in the gateway, so that Joe can go into production with the confidence that he's not going to get a ping from his legal team asking why his chatbot is giving tax advice to random users on the internet, when it definitely should not. Awesome. So I'm going to switch over to a demo now. Give me 1 sec just to switch my screen. Okay, awesome. Looks like that's working. Hopefully what you see on the screen is familiar to you. It is indeed a Databricks workspace. And I'm starting from the home page here. But where I'm going to go to configure my AI Gateway is going to be all the way down here in the AI ML section. In particular, I'm going to go down to serving. Serving is the home for all of your deployments in Databricks. These are endpoints that are hosted on Databricks or external models, aka LLMs that are hosted off Databricks. So this is kind of like your landing page for everything that you have. If I look at the models that are owned by me, I've actually already set up a gateway pretty easily within the serving page, and you can kind of see that come to life with the kinds of models that I have here. I've connected to Gemini 2.0 Flash, 2.5. I've connected to AWS Nova models, Titan models, and then of course the GPT models that OpenAI provides, all of these hosted off of Databricks. However, if you look above here, you can also see that I have endpoints that are built into the platform that connect me to other models that I may want to use, and I don't need to configure credentials for or anything, like Claude Sonnet 4, Llama 4 Maverick, and a host of other Claude and Llama models out there. So what does it look like to actually set up an AI gateway? It's pretty easy, and it's baked entirely into your endpoint workflow. When you create a serving endpoint, you can name it, choose the kind of model that you want to connect to it. So out of the foundation models I have, I can choose provision throughput for my built-in foundation models, or I can talk to external model providers. And as you can see, we support pretty much every top provider out there. But if we don't, we also have a custom provider option where you can bring alternate models, like for example, Grok or DeepSeek, that aren't explicitly in this list, and govern them via the AI Gateway. Because again, we really care about being model agnostic. Like, you're gonna know what LLMs work best for which use cases, and we don't wanna pigeonhole you into a provider or saying you can only use LLMs hosted on Databricks. That's not what we're in the business of doing. So I will choose, let's say, anything, like it doesn't really matter, because what you can see here is that the AI Gateway features are all available out of the box. I can enable usage tracking, which is enabled by default on every endpoint created. I can create an inference table out of this, pointing to a catalog and schema of my choice. So I already have one, it's Archica Gateway. And this will help me audit for compliance and or give quality monitoring to my product teams. And then I can also set up AI guardrails. So we have out-of-box guardrails for safety and PII detection. And this is actually something, if you've looked at this, you probably haven't seen this, because we have a custom guardrails feature coming out in private preview next week, where we say, you know what compliance needs you have, you bring your guardrail, and we'll orchestrate it in our AI Gateway, whatever it looks like. So I can add that as well. And then we have rate limiting here to enforce and manage traffic and costs on every endpoint, whether that's per user or per endpoint. And lastly, if you're really worried about reliability at scale and you're starting to share the same OpenAI across 15 different teams and things keep going down in one region or one like option that you have, you can fall back across different models and providers and basically enable this automatic failover for whenever like Azure OpenAI Region 1 gets inundated with traffic, automatically failover requests to Region 2 so that the SLAs are being maintained that are in production and everyone has access to these models even if like specific things are down in specific regions. So those are like the core functionalities of Gateway today. But let's say Joe has already set up his endpoints, as we see here, with all of these models that I currently have. How is he going to track the usage of all of these different providers and models and being used by different people? Like, is there a centralized way to even do this? Well, the answer is yes, through a system table, specifically a usage tracking system table that you can see that I've created a dashboard from here. This is a dashboard that basically takes the data from my usage tracking table, which includes who's requesting in every single request, how many tokens are going in, and how many tokens are going out, along with other things like status codes, et cetera. So it's request level metadata. And then it basically enables you to visualize and track usage over time. So here I'm tracking the weekly costs per endpoint because I know the tokens that are being used, and then I'm going and mapping that to the costs from those tokens based off of whatever deal I have with a different provider. So I've turned that into a graph here. And what you can see is there's a bunch of different providers being reflected here. But does anyone notice something like a little bit off about this graph? Something like that's happening that maybe is something that I should be looking at the last weeks? Is it this thing? Yeah, okay, what the heck is going on here? Why did this just spike randomly? This is happening within like the last 3 days, and why are my costs going through the roof for GPT-4o? This is an answer that I really care about and something that I really care about knowing, so let's see if I can investigate. I can also track across tokens here, and you can see it's kind of telling the same story here, that someone is really inundating like the GPT-4o model. And so what's even better is that I can also look at weekly user spend breakdown. So who is calling which LLMs and how much? It's not just how much am I getting charged, it's where is the source of these costs. And so I kind of think I have a hunch of who it could be, because this person seems to have singularly created a large spike in costs over the past week. And you might notice this is just my name without a prefix and suffix, basically. But this is my alter ego, I guess. And if I click onto this, I can see exactly what they're doing. Well, it turns out this person is literally only using GPT-4o this week, and they're the primary reason why these costs are going through the roof. This way, you can literally track your costs, investigate where they're coming from, and make sure that they're being used in a way that is compliant with the budgets you have set across different teams or use cases, and the overall budget that you have per model or per endpoint. And as you can see, I can literally monitor this if I were to unclick from here across every single endpoint that I currently have, and track the costs of each one. But it would kind of suck to figure this out in retrospect. Like, the damage is done. I can't ask OpenAI for a refund at this point. Wouldn't it be nice to know this a little bit sooner than like 3 or 4 days later? Well, yes, the answer is probably yes. And so what you can do on top of your data that lives in Databricks is you can set up SQL alerts to basically query for anomalies and different trends that you want to basically alert on, and then make sure that you get an alert when it's detected. So if I just go to the alert section here, I actually already created a SQL alert that was triggered, and I can see how it was triggered because I'm going to go to my email. This is my inbox, and I've created a label for this specific purpose. And if I zoom in, because it's very small, I can see that I got an email from my Databricks SQL alert titled, GPT-4o is seeing a cost spike anomaly. And this was at 11:44 p.m. last night. So if I click into it, it says, this is an alert that OpenAI GPT-4o with an AI Gateway is seeing an anomaly spike in costs. Please go to the usage tracking dashboard to investigate the spike. And then I can basically go and do the same process that I just did with you guys, but a lot sooner to when it's actually happening, so I can stop these things closer to real time than, down the line when the damage is pretty much amplified beyond means. So this is a really powerful way to basically do cost controls. And as I also mentioned previously, we do have the rate limiting feature. So if I want to go back to my GPT-4o endpoint, I can basically be like, hey, nobody's really using this endpoint in production today. That user shouldn't have been able to do their personal project or whatever they were doing on that. Let me go enforce a rate limit to make sure that per user, no one can query this more than 100 times per minute, so people don't release large batch jobs onto OpenAI without me knowing this. And so when I create this rate limit, I can update it here, and bam. Now I know that each user that calls GPT-4o can't really call it more than 100 queries per minute, and we'll make sure that we rate limit them so that they know that they're exceeding a capacity expectation that's been set. Okay, so this is cost. Let me actually go back, or actually no, I'll keep going. This is the cost aspect of AI Gateway. Now, how do we monitor for compliance? Well, let's go to an agent endpoint. If I refresh this page, it will likely pull up my endpoint. I've created an agent in Databricks, and this is an agent that basically is like a financial services chatbot, for example. And what you can see here is that I have inference tables enabled on this agent. So I'm basically able to log everything going in and out and all of the traces that this agent is dealing with in production. However, I want to make sure this agent is compliant, and I need a way to figure out how can I actually tell if it is compliant. Do I need to go into the inference table and just look at it with my eyes and see if it's replying with things that are sanctioned or not sanctioned? It seems kind of like a lot of effort to do that. So the amazing thing is that inference tables are integrated with MLflow or agent evaluation, which is basically where all of your payloads that come in will be automatically evaluated for the guidelines that you create and care about on that data. So if I go to MLflow evaluation, you can see here that this is the same agent that I was looking at earlier, and these are some of the requests coming into that agent. So everyone wants to get tax advice, but we really can't be answering those questions, as you can see over here. So what we are going to look at is this side, which is the assessments, where I've actually created different assessments to see, hey, did the LLM reply in compliance with what I care about or not? So one of them is an out-of-box one, which is a safety assessment that we provide for you. But then we also let you generate custom assessments. And this one that I generated is basically checking whether or not this LLM is giving tax advice. And what we can see here is, unfortunately, around half of the time, it seems like it is, which is not something we want to happen. I can even get more granular and look at why this assessment was made. So for example, this one states pretty clearly, the guideline states that the response must not offer any tax advice or suggestions, but the response provides detailed steps on how to claim charitable donations on taxes, including specific forms to use and documentation required. This is literally my worst nightmare, so I really don't want this to happen. But good thing that I had agent monitoring and evaluation to actually put this on the data that's coming into my agent and detect that this is even happening so that I don't have to wait for legal to send me a screenshot that they're mad about it. Okay, but we want to be a little bit more proactive than going and just setting up a guideline here in the monitoring tab and praying that this never gets violated or that I'll catch it soon enough before someone notices. In fact, we probably want to apply in this case something called a guardrail. So what I know is that this agent is being backed by a specific LLM, GPT-4o Mini, and I also know that this LLM is being used not just by this agent, but a bunch of different use cases. So I don't want to apply this guardrail on a specific use case. I actually want to make sure that no use case is going against the compliance policy. So I'm going to go back and apply the guardrail on the underlying LLM that was called and that generated this insight. So if I go back to GPT-4o Mini in my AI Gateway, I'm going to go and edit my AI Gateway here. And then you can see I have my inference table, usage tracking, but let's click on guardrails. Okay, I want to create an output guardrail because I want to make sure that the outputs aren't giving tax advice. And I've actually already built a guardrail customized to my enterprise need to do this. So let me add this custom guardrail. It's probably going to be called no tax advice output guardrail. That sounds about right. Okay, let me add this in. Okay, I've created the guardrail. I'm going to update my endpoint. And now let's actually make sure that this works in practice. And what I can do is test this out in the playground. So I have my GPT-4o Mini gateway endpoint. And then I also created another endpoint that is also GPT-4o Mini, but it has no guardrails on it. And let's take a look at how these two endpoints reply differently to something that's really trying to trap me into a compliance violation. So I'm going to be pretty straightforward. I'm not even going to be sneaky. I'm going to say, give me tax advice, please. Okay, so let me run this. And what you can see here is that the one without guardrails has, it's off to the races. They're giving you 7, 9, 10 steps of like what you can do for like your taxes. And then like maybe there's a caveat that's like, oh, consult with a tax professional. But what we saw was that our guardrail basically detected that this was an unsanctioned output, and we sanitized it to make sure that the output would only say if there's a detection of like tax advice, being offered, sorry, I can't provide tax advice. Please consult a tax professional. This is the standard thing that I want to come out of my LLM if someone's trying to do something funky with it. And we can see that the guardrail endpoint did accomplish that, but the no guardrails endpoint, unfortunately, was still the nightmare that I was trying to avoid. The playground is also a really good place to basically understand how the unified query interface works, where I can really query a lot of different kinds of models that I have in my gateway through the playground, from Claude Sonnet 4 to really like any Llama model, for example. And I can ask it, what is data intelligence? Send it the exact same query in the exact same interface, and get it to reply. So I'm almost kind of doing like an A/B test manually live with you guys because we standardize it to a query interface. So you can do this from the playground or programmatically using the OpenAI SDK. Awesome. So that is pretty much the gist of the demo and how we basically saved Joe's life, hopefully. So I'm going to switch back to our slides. Okay, cool. So what did we end up seeing during this demo? We saw how easy it is to set up AI Gateway. It's built into your serving endpoints, and it governs any provider, including custom providers that you bring to the table as well. In addition, we proactively govern cost and capacity for you. We have usage tracking, which gives you full centralized cost observability across providers, and you can set up alerting on top of that to make sure that things are not happening under your nose without you knowing. In addition, we also provide proactive ways to do this, like rate limits to prevent overspend from happening in the first place, especially if someone decides to kick off a batch job on, maybe their own data or some pet project that they have. What did we see from a compliance perspective? What we saw was the ability to enforce and audit compliance. Using inference tables, you were able to first capture all the requests and responses of the traffic going through your endpoint, whether that's an agent, an LLM, or even a custom or classical ML model. And then on top of that, you can establish agent monitoring and evaluation to actually generate really key compliance insights to give you a lay of the land of how well your endpoint is actually doing without having to manually keep track of this or live in fear. And then if you want to be more proactive, we now enable you to plug in custom guardrails for your enterprise-specific requirements. You might be in different industries and care about different things. To enforce these across not just one endpoint, but it can be any endpoint that lives in Databricks because we standardize the query interface and translate for you. And lastly, what's really important here is that we're accelerating the path to production. This isn't just about governance, it's about productionization. All these LLMs live within this unified query interface, making experimentation super easy, and you're never gonna have vendor lock-in. You can swap in and out of different models for different projects super easily. The inference tables goes even a step further than compliance. I could have made those custom metrics that I just showed you something more quality related, perhaps, than compliance related, and that gives your product teams these really valuable insights into how well their agent or their endpoint or LLM is actually doing in production. So we have a special announcement today. I just showed you a lot of features, and the announcement is that as of today, AI Gateway is officially GA. So nobody, thank you. Yeah, our team has been working really hard to build the right set of features over the past 9 months. And we spent these past few weeks getting it over the finish line so that nobody has an excuse to not use this anymore. This is in your hands, it's fully compliant, GA, you can take it, run, govern your endpoints, etc., and get your teams to production faster. So why should you configure your AI Gateway on Databricks? Again, govern your data and your models in one place with AI Gateway and Unity Catalog, which is where your usage tracking and inference tables are stored. We're model agnostic today and we'll be model agnostic tomorrow, so don't need to worry about vendor lock-in or integration bottlenecks. And Databricks is really an end-to-end platform. The integrations are super valuable here, from inference tables to agent monitoring and eval to creating alerts and dashboards to actually generate valuable business insights from the data that we capture out of the box through AI Gateway. And we've had a lot of customers be very successful using AI Gateway to get to production faster. Here we have one that says that the Mosaic AI Gateway allows them to securely consume any LLM, whether it's OpenAI or models hosted on Databricks, and this allows them to democratize Gen AI and deploy new use cases like a customer service bot, for example, something external facing, to improve customer satisfaction without risk. And then our friends at Edmunds say that the Mosaic AI Gateway is accelerating their AI-driven projects because they can focus more on innovation and less on administrative oversight with this built-in governance and observability handled by Databricks. So, what's coming next? I teased a few of these already, but the first one is user-based rate limiting. So what you saw today was that when you go to an endpoint, you have to kind of rate limit every user the exact same amount. That's not great at scale. You might have a service principal or a user that should have a different rate limit or capacity limit, and you want to basically have one OpenAI instance and say, this person gets this much of a rate limit or capacity, and this production use case gets like unlimited or a much, much higher ceiling of this. We're going to be supporting that super soon in a matter of a couple of weeks so that you guys can scale your AI Gateway without having to worry about user-based policies or creating new endpoints for new policies. As you saw, we have a bring your own guardrails feature that's actually coming out into private preview, I believe next week. So if any of you guys are interested in basically enforcing your own domain-specific guardrails, please talk to us afterwards. We'd love to get you signed up for the private preview and make sure that this works for your use cases, along with our out-of-box guardrails that already exist. And then what we've noticed and a lot of customers have told us is that actually their quota and capacity isn't queries per minute, it's tokens per minute. Because Azure, OpenAI, Anthropic, Bedrock, et cetera, they're all saying this is how much you get, and it's in terms of tokens per minute. So we want to mirror that so that you can more effectively manage your capacity and costs in the way that your provider is passing it down to you. And that's going to be coming this summer as well. And lastly, I already teased this one, but real-time inference tables. So real-time production monitoring and observability for your operational metrics, your quality metrics, and your compliance metrics are coming super soon. And that will start off in a private preview, and then we're going to be really excited to kind of ship that off to everyone so you can benefit from deploying real-time production AI applications on Databricks with the observability that you need. So given that we're GA, again, everyone can set up AI Gateway today. We're fully compliant, and we're available in all regions that model serving is available. And it's as easy as doing it from the UI. But it's actually even easier if I do it from the notebook, which I'm going to show you guys. Cool, I'm back at the playground. I'm going to go to my notebook, make sure that I'm connected. I have a cell to basically configure all of, like, the API keys and Databricks secrets that I need to live behind the connections that I'm creating in AI Gateway. I run that, and then I have this cell, which is basically running and creating the different models that I want to configure behind my AI Gateway. So we have everything from GPT-4o Mini to Amazon Titan models to Gemini models, et cetera. And so I ran that one. And then here I'm going to actually make sure that these models live in my AI Gateway and are governed, and basically spin this up right now. So it's taking a few seconds, but what you can see that I'm doing here is I'm configuring by default inference tables and a usage tracking configuration on all of them. And I'm going to name them DICE demo endpoints so you can know that this is actually happening real time, right in front of you, live. And it seems like this cell ran successfully. And if I check, I see that I've created all of these new endpoints out of the box. I go back to serving, and bam. I've literally set up an AI Gateway for like 10 to 15 different endpoints across 3 different providers in a matter of, like, what was that, a minute or so? So we're here to help you scale that super effectively, and it's really, really easy to get set up today. Awesome. So key takeaways here is remember that you can govern all of your AI and data in a centralized manner. Then you can also enforce compliance and cost controls across any LLM or agent that matters to you. And lastly, you can get to production and stay there with real-time quality, performance, and compliance observability. So AI Gateway is very valuable from the governance perspective for the platform team, but also the observability perspective for both the platform and the teams that are trying to go to production. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I think